Welcome to the very first episode of the Solo Moviegoers Club. This is a podcast in which me, Sean, and my daughter Kaya go to see movies alone, but we see the same movie within 24 hours of each other, and we're not allowed to talk to each other about the movie before the podcast starts. It has to be a movie that we haven't seen, and we are not allowed to read any reviews or talk to anybody about the movie prior to doing this podcast. So what you're about to get is our raw, unfiltered thoughts of a movie that we both just saw on our own, now discussing it together for the first time. Kaya, what do you have to add to that?
I remember before I moved out on my own, I used to make fun of you all the time for doing this, but now it's one of my favorite things to do by myself. So I think it's going to be really exciting to see how we react to each movie.
Yeah, I think so too. And a little background is, so I moved from Michigan, where I grew up, to Los Angeles when I was 20 years old. And I started seeing movies by myself because I wanted to see movies and I didn't have any friends. So I just went to movies by myself and I fell in love with it. And Kaya grew up in LA and then we moved back to Michigan. And I just continued watching movies by myself because I loved doing it. And then it was so funny because then Kaya, when she was 20, moved to Los Angeles and then started seeing movies by herself. So that's the full background, I think, right? That's everything. And then we just started seeing movies and talking about them. And I think what we realized is that it's really odd because movie going has become sort of a social experience, but it's a social experience in which you can't talk to the person that you're with. So what difference does it make if, I think discussing the movie you saw needs to be a social experience, and that's part of the fun of seeing movies. Is the same thing as consuming any art, is talking to people that you care about and whose opinions you care about whatever it is that you just experienced. And so this is what we're doing. We're just taking what we typically do and adding a couple of rules to it to make it fun and making it a podcast, because we think that there probably is a whole community of people out there who don't know that each other exist, who are the freaks that go see movies by themselves like us. So that's who we're trying to reach here, is other people, and really just create a conversation around something that we love.
Yeah. I mean, we pretty much text each other all the time when we're in the theater, hey, I'm going to see this movie. And then if you've done that and you review the movie for me, then I always find myself going to see the movie the next day or something. So I feel regardless, it's a communal experience.
For sure. Yeah, it's a communal experience from 2,600 miles apart. It's kind of the beauty of technology is sometimes I think technology, social media, which I'm not really on, and all technology really separates people. But I think this is a cool example of a way that technology is connecting us, and now connecting us more than ever, because this is fun. We've never done this before, where we both saw a movie for the first time and didn't say anything to each other about it first. So,
and I didn't read about it before. I went into this completely blank, with no outside forces controlling my opinions on it.
Yeah, me too. And I wouldn't even talk to friends. I had a couple friends who told me they saw the movie that we saw today, and I was pretty rude to them because I just didn't ask any questions. Just they said they saw it, and I just said cool. So it's this will be interesting because I think we'll get to see how we really respond to things and not how we respond with other influences. And so one thing I want to do before this ends is I first want us to talk about what we thought about the movie. And then I want us to look at some professional reviews and letterboxd reviews, and see how we feel after we see what other people have to say about the movie.
Yeah,
and one other thing.
Curious.
I'm curious too, but one other thing to note is that the movie we saw was Beetlejuice. And a really interesting thing about this is that I have seen Beetlejuice dozens of times, and I absolutely love it. And I love Tim Burton. And Kaya likes Tim Burton, or loves Tim Burton.
I love Tim Burton. Him, yeah.
But hasn't really seen. She says she hasn't seen Beetlejuice at all because it scared her. But I talked to.
I've seen half of it.
Yeah, well, I talked to Mumsy. You guys are going to hear, if you continue listening to this podcast, several other characters mentioned throughout this. Mumsy is my wife, Christina, Kaya's mom, and then Kaya has two siblings, Atlas and Bee, and a dog who's barking in the background that you may or may not hear right now. Oh, yeah, another caveat. We're recording this from our homes, so you could hear dogs barking, you could hear children screaming, you could hear any number of things in the background. We'll try to edit out most of those background sounds so it's not too annoying, but sometimes it's unavoidable.
It's life.
Yeah. So without any
But yeah,
further
that
ado,
movie, no, I literally would not choose to see this movie ever because when I was little and I saw it, I was only able to make it through like certain points because it absolutely terrified me. So there's that.
yeah, that's so funny. And it's funny, I was thinking about it today. My introduction to Tim Burton was accidental. I went to see this is totally going to date me, but I went to see a double feature of Home Alone and Edward Scissorhands at a drive-in theater. My parents took me, and I don't know who did the programming at this theater, but Edward Scissorhands played before Home Alone. So
That's
you had to
crazy.
watch. So I was like, I was 6
They're
years
both like
old.
Christmas movies
They are
too.
both Christmas movies. I was 6 years old when those movies came out. It was 1990, and I had to sit through Edward Scissorhands, and I was like, I don't want to see the creepy movie with the guy and the scissors in his hands, and I loved it even at that age. It was
Yeah.
really great, and was really happy that I saw it. So, I think it's funny how your parents drag you into experiences that you don't want to have, like seeing Beetlejuice or Edward Scissorhands or Beetlejuice, and it ends up kind of like forming who you are.
Yeah.
Cool. So,
So,
person who's never seen all of Beetlejuice, what did you think?
um, honestly, there were like some moments. For starters, I was like sweating because I realized that the movie theater has seat heat and I accidentally turned it on. So I was wondering if I was like actually panicking or not. But there were like parts of it, especially at the beginning, that really reminded me of why I did not finish that movie.
Yeah, I mean it's gory and it's about
I
the
don't know
afterlife.
why. It's like, it's so cheesy and like, I don't know, like it looks fake. It looks like a kid's movie, but there are like so many aspects of it that grossed me out. So, yeah.
Wait, don't you also have a beef with German expressionism, or am I making this up?
This is probably true.
I think I remember wasn't there like a German expressionist movie that you had to watch in a film class that you hated?
Is Nosferatu
Yeah.
German? Yes. Then yeah, yeah. Uh, yeah.
That's funny. And
It
that
did
Tim
remind me
Burton
of
does
that.
that. Well, he does that really well. That's his style. It's like his adaptation of it, and it's very sort of disconcerting. Like he walked down those twisted hallways and the way that he uses color. It's definitely scary. And what's interesting is that it was I was thinking about it more watching this today, is that his movies are comedies, but they're also horror. Like it's all the aesthetics of horror and some like truly horrifying things, but they're also funny. And it's an interesting way to, I think, become comfortable with death, because he just confronts you with it head on from the very beginning of the movie, from the very opening scene. You're watching dead people die,
Yeah.
and you're sort of seeing the gruesomeness of it, and you're also seeing this sort of comical afterlife.
Yeah. I think the part that really tripped me up about it was like the characters looked like old movies. I love old movies, but Beetlejuice, the original, it looked old to me and like the makeup looked old and this movie looked the same to me. So I think that that's what was really like freaking me out the whole time that I watched it.
I noticed that too. I actually love that. I love that they didn't modernize the makeup. I like that I couldn't tell. I'm sure, well, maybe not. I don't know. The like the sandworms.
Yeah.
I don't know if those were stop motion or if they were some combination of stop motion and CG. It was probably a
Yeah.
combination. Oh, I should mention this as well, that I make films for a living. Despite despite the fact of like my lighting and camera setup right now, we will improve that with time. Yes, do not judge my films by the way this podcast currently looks. It will get better. It's our first time. But yeah, I might get a little technical, so get me out of the technical weeds, Kaya, if that gets boring.
Okay. I think
Kaya
it's
is
interesting.
Yeah,
So,
Kai is also a filmmaker, so we are filmmakers and film lovers talking about film. And hopefully my dog's not barking too much in the background. Can you hear that?
A little bit. Not right now. It's not that bad.
Okay. Yeah, I love that. That was one of the main things I was noticing too. I was really happy from the very beginning how practical all of the effects looked and how it looked like you could I actually want to do this now, but it looked like you could watch Beetlejuice and Beetlejuice back to back and not know that there was 34 years between them.
The only difference that I really noticed was the phones, and that's something that bothers me a lot now in movies. I don't know why, because it's just like how life is, but there was a lot of screens.
They kind of made fun of that too. Like, oh,
Yeah.
this spoilers abound. By the way, spoiler alert. If you don't want to know what happens in Beetlejuice, turn this off now, run the other way. But the wedding scene, where it's just everybody has their phone out,
Yeah,
that
I
was
thought that
really
was
funny.
hilarious. They
Yeah.
did a really good job of like when they turned the cameras to like show the influencers. I thought that that was really cool. But
Yeah, and it was cool how they brought it. There were some elements like that. They brought it obviously into our contemporary era without making it about our contemporary era. Where I feel like so many movies, there's been so many sequels that like 20 years later sequels, whether it's like Coming to America 2 or I don't know why I'm just naming Eddie Murphy movies, but the new Beverly Hills Cop. I guess because he's the other guy doing this, right? He's bringing back movies from 30 years ago and making sequels. And there's so much about like the new Beverly Hills Cop was about what it's like for Axel Foley to live in today's world and try to reconnect with his daughter. And this movie avoided all of that, which I was really happy about. It was a movie about the Dietz family confronting the afterlife and this demon Beetlejuice who happens to have come into their lives and is back there again.
yeah, and maybe this is like a little bit too Gen Z talk, but like I know that in the original movie people thought that it was weird that like Beetlejuice wanted to marry like a teenager, but like the fact that they like still incorporated that and they didn't like I don't know, change the original movie or change the plot line because of that. I thought that that was really like strong for this specific
For sure.
movie.
You may not be aware of this. Some listeners will be, some won't be. And I don't want to. I believe what happened. I'll fact check this before we publish this episode. And if I'm wrong about this, I'll change it. But do you know how the dad was claymation or whatever it was, like fake claymation or
Yes.
claymation in the one scene where you saw him and then he got his head bit off by a shark?
Yes.
Do you know why they did that?
No.
Because the actor Jeffrey Jones, who originally played the dad, I want to say he was either accused or convicted of something like some sort of hideous crime,
Really?
like child pornography or
Really?
something.
Wow.
Let me look this up before
I
we
was
slander
wondering.
this guy.
No, I was wondering. I was going to ask you about that because I did not like that part of it.
So, also, quick fact, one time at the West Hollywood Whole Foods salad bar, I saw Jeffrey Jones in full costume, hair and makeup from, I believe it was a Revolutionary War series that he made. And it was terrifying because I was terrified of Jeffrey Jones as a kid because he's the principal in Ferris Bueller. He's also the villain that gets turned into this like big crab creature in Howard the Duck. And then obviously he's in Beetlejuice, but he's not a villain in Beetlejuice. Okay, he was charged with soliciting a minor to pose for nude photographs.
Wow.
He pleaded no contest and had subsequent arrests for failing to update his sex offender status.
Wow.
So I don't know the story of what happened there. Obviously, I don't know if I was far off or not, but it doesn't sound good. And anyways, they killed him off in a way they could keep the character, but
Yeah.
not replace the actor, but also not deal with that. It was like genius to have his head get bit off by a shark, and that had the one weird sequence where they
I
had
was
to
wondering why. I had no idea, but makes sense.
yeah. But yeah, I think they did a really good job overall of that. That included that. I think that instance shows how thoughtful they were in staying true to the original movie, but also adjusting to the world we live in now and the things that
Yeah.
the people they were working with did.
Yeah.
Allegedly. Isn't that what they do on podcasts? They just say allegedly about everything that may or may not be true.
Yeah, allegedly.
Allegedly. Yeah, but I loved it.
Really.
What did you
would
think?
rate it on Letterboxd out of 5 stars?
4.5.
Yeah, you can do half stars on
Yeah,
Letterboxd.
I would do 4.5.
I would say 3.
Ooh,
Um, I will say this. I've been very emotional in movies. I cried during this movie. I've
well,
cried in every single movie that I've seen in the theater for like the past 2 years, maybe. I don't know why. I cried at the scene where she found out that the teenage boy was like evil.
okay,
Um, I don't know why. It wasn't sad. It just made me feel something. There's something about it. I just
interesting.
started tearing up.
I don't know if it has to do. Well, Tim Burton's an incredibly emotional filmmaker, and I think that's what I. So first off, I have to like caveat this statement, but Tim Burton, one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. I think he's made some movies that my life is better because these movies exist. Those movies
Hmm.
would be Beetlejuice, Edward Scissorhands, Big Fish is
Hmm.
maybe one of the most emotionally resonant movies I've ever seen. And it's just incredible. And, Ed Wood, Mars Attacks, like he's made some incredible movies. And I have been, when I say this, here's where I get to the caveating part. I haven't loved a lot of the work that he's done over the past like 10 years.
Hmm.
And it's always kind of disappointing to me because
Hmm.
you know what he's capable of. And
Yeah.
I think this to me is what he's capable of. Like this was funny, it was scary, it was super emotional. It was really like everything that I want out of a Tim Burton movie. But then I also think like what kind of jerk am I for saying like I'm disappointed in what this guy's doing when like I've never made anything as good as those movies. and, and, and not only that, but like to be able to make the handful of like genuinely like he there's been a million Tim Burton imitators and nobody can do it, right? Like he
Hmm.
changed the art form. He's made Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Like these are amazing classic movies that really have impacted people's lives that people love. Like there was a Tim Burton retrospective at LACMA. Like he's one of the great filmmakers of all
That was
time.
the best.
So
Yeah.
so then yeah, to be able to walk into his world and his brain was unbelievable. But so it's a weird thing where you expect so much from somebody because they like overachieved so much and did something so incredible, and then when they don't do that thing you're like and there's only a handful of people that are in that situation. There's like Wes Anderson, Tim Burton, Quentin Tarantino, people that truly have like their own style that's unlike anything else that exists. And it's just a weird thing. I was thinking about the weird like artist consumer relationship. And like if they wouldn't have been so great, their other movies would have been just like awesome movies that you saw. But
Yeah, for
instead, you're
sure.
disappointed because it's not that thing that you want to get.
Uh-huh.
Where do you rate this on your with your 3? Where do you rate this on your Tim Burton scale?
I mean, Edward Scissorhands is like maybe my favorite movie, except like, I mean, there's Napoleon Dynamite. But like, I have like a very specific style of movie that I like to watch. And this was good though. Like, I found that like when I was watching it, I wanted to know what was going to happen. Like, sometimes in movies, I will genuinely get really bored. But this movie, I was like really locked in and I was like curious the whole time because there were so many things happening, especially at the end. Like, I think at the beginning it felt a little bit slower before like Beetlejuice really was part of like their world. But like once it like started going, there were so many things happening, and like this is going to be something that we talk about a lot. I don't like conflict in movies, but there was something about the conflict in this movie that I wanted. Like I needed it.
The conflict in movies is a big thing. Also, like Ratatouille is as conflict laden movie as exists, and it's one of Kai's
It's
favorites.
my favorite, yeah. But I won't watch like Nemo or Cars because of the conflict in those. Um, I like good life movies.
We'll
But
address
yeah,
this.
yeah. The conflict in this was like really fun, and I like that it felt like super like high stakes towards the end.
If you could be any character from this movie, who would you be?
I don't know. I really liked, what is her name? The grandmother's name, the stepmom. What is her name?
Oh, Catherine O'Hara.
Yes,
She's
yes, yes.
always awesome.
Yeah, I loved her character. I think the most. Um, I would be her, the
Yeah,
artist.
she's cool.
Yeah.
It's also interesting because this one, the stakes, speaking of stakes, are really high in picking which character you want to be because this is a movie that assumes that there's an afterlife. And
Uh-huh.
so, if whatever character you choose, you have to be that character for an eternity that exists.
Mm-hmm. Who would you choose?
Would like to say Beetlejuice because he's so fun,
Uh-huh.
but he's also so gross.
I know.
I don't think I can handle the grossness.
I think the whole time I was trying to find like very redeeming qualities of him, but he just kept grossing me out the whole time. Like with the guts, the green goo, like I I couldn't like him. I wanted to like him in the wedding scene. I just couldn't.
Yeah, yeah, he's tough. He's a great villain in the sense that he's pretty deplorable. Like he's
Uh-huh.
really only looking out for himself all the time, but he's also not really. But he's also just looking for love, isn't he? But he
Yeah.
wants love at the expense of somebody else. Like he doesn't care what Lydia. He knows Lydia detests him,
Yeah.
and he wants to marry her anyway. He's Bowser from
Yeah.
from just wanting Peach.
I mean, I was thinking like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park too. Um, like being a horrible person and then in the end still pulling through and like saving the day.
T Rex is a person.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So what surprised you about it? What was different than you thought it would be?
I was expecting, I think I was expecting it to be a little bit more realistic in the sense of like, I don't know why, but like the the sandworms, like that sort of aspect I wasn't expecting there to be in this version. I was expecting more of like the really intricate cinematic scenes from like the town, which I really enjoyed. But I think like the mix of the two was really cool to see.
So I don't know why I didn't rewatch Beetlejuice before going to see this. That would have been the smart thing to do, but I'd
I should have
completely
watched it
forgotten
more.
about one of the things I loved the most about Beetlejuice was the aerial photography that makes the
Yeah.
town look like the model town.
Uh-huh.
Like
I love
that
that.
intermixing of where you're almost not sure if it's the real town or the model town. Like I was looking at times to see if the cars were modern cars or not and if the lights were.
Hmm.
And that's such a small detail, but they do that so well.
Yeah, I agree.
Everything so well. All the attention to detail, the production design,
Hmm.
obviously incredible. Performance is incredible. I think one thing I was really happy about, I think it would have been really easy, and I actually got concerned about this on the way to the movie. I don't know why, but it would have been easy to take, like, how does her mom describe her? She's like, where's the Lydia that was that obnoxious little goth kid?
Yeah, I love
Um,
that part.
but I was worried that it would have been really easy to take Jenna Ortega's character and make her just like a mini version of Lydia, which would have essentially just been
Yeah.
Wednesday Adams.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was expecting too. But I like that she was kind of an outcast in her family that is all outcasts in general.
It's yeah, it was interesting because it was like especially when they went to the private school, I was really
Uh-huh.
worried. I was like, is this just gonna be like a scene from Wednesday?
Yeah.
She was the outcast at school and the outcast in her family, and
Uh-huh. But
Wednesday
she
was
was
actually in
normal.
her family. Yes, but
Yeah. She was
yeah,
just normal.
which ultimately got used against her.
Yeah.
I thought that was an interesting twist. I didn't see that coming. So I also one thing that I should have seen it coming, but one thing I thought was great was, but it kind of didn't pay off. There was when they both wondered why. Sorry, I can't remember what was Lydia's daughter's name. Astrid. When Astrid and Lydia didn't know why Lydia couldn't see her dead husband when she sees all the
Hmm.
other ghosts. I still don't really understand why she couldn't see him. I was thinking because when they said they never found the body, that he
Hmm.
wasn't really dead. And
Yeah.
like he was somewhere in the Amazonian rainforest surviving
Uh-huh.
off of nature. And so I was surprised to see him in the afterlife. And I still did. I don't know if I missed something because he
Hmm.
said he was like creeping around, checking in on them.
Yeah.
I don't know if I missed something or if maybe she didn't see him because he was looking for her. Was there an answer there that I missed?
No, I don't think he wanted to be seen. That's what I took from that. He
And the
just
other
wanted to
ghosts
check
do want to
in,
be
but
seen.
I guess. but I did find that weird as well.
Yeah, and I loved even like they could have gone more realistic with some of the makeup, like the fish hanging off of his body,
Yeah.
and those things like they still stuck with that original look,
Uh-huh.
which I thought was so awesome. And even some of like the stock characters, like so you maybe you know this just from seeing things in pop culture, or maybe you don't, but some of the like the shrunken head guys
Hmm.
that the Beetlejuice hangs out with. There's even a football player, like in that waiting room, there was a really famous football player, Ghost. I saw some of those guys wandering around, and even their costumes still looked as retro as they did in the 80s film.
Yeah. It definitely felt old school when I was watching it, and I really loved it.
Better or worse than you thought it was going to be?
It was definitely better than I was anticipating. It's just not like a movie that I would normally see, especially because I had such a traumatic past with the original. But it was good.
You know what's crazy is that the original Beetlejuice became a children's TV series, a cartoon spinoff.
Okay.
Like, can you possibly imagine a movie that like a movie with themes of suicide and murder and death and the afterlife that becomes a children's TV show?
That's crazy.
There were Beetlejuice action figures. Little kids were Beetlejuice for Halloween. There were Beetlejuice
Yeah.
lunchboxes.
Well, I was expecting it to be a little bit more like PG than it was. I mean, obviously it was. Like it's kind of a kids movie, but still like I don't know. It just doesn't seem like a movie you would like advertise to children.
Yeah, it was. This is a relative of ours took his, I think, like 6 or 7 year old son. Billy took Curran
Uh-huh.
to see this, and he said like Curran didn't love it. But by the way, I'm not judging. I took Kaya's 9 year old brother to see Deadpool versus Wolverine. So, like, not the best example of responsible movie choices here, but yeah, it is odd that Beetlejuice has become sort of a kids movie or a movie that kids flock
I
to.
I feel like so many kids, not that I hang out with a lot of kids, but all of the kids that I've like watched or that I've known love this movie or the original. So,
I think it's just because the visuals are pretty cartoony, and I also
yeah,
well think about how much kids love Halloween.
true.
It's like anything gross kids like, and
Yeah.
I think a lot of what kids like. It was interesting watching my son Atlas during Deadpool because I would like look at him when something really inappropriate got said, and he just didn't
Uh-huh.
get it. It just went completely over his head.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that's this. I think that is the experience that a lot of kids are having with Beetlejuice. But it really
Yeah.
does. It was like I was thinking about that a lot in the theater of how much it makes you confront death. Even like the methods of death.
Uh-huh.
There was the woman who was I don't know what these people's positions were within the afterlife bureaucracy, but the woman that had like the spear sticking
This
through her
I was
neck.
yeah, I was going to say her.
And it's just like I was sitting there in the theater thinking about like, oh, that is a way that someone could die, and
Yeah.
you're being just confronted with that in this really funny but grotesque way.
Yeah. Or
That
like
is
the
like,
Christmas tree one, like
oh yeah,
Char. Yeah.
yeah, all those are good, and it just made me think about like why people watch horror movies, and I have a theory about it.
Hmm.
My theory, and obviously celebrate Halloween. My theory is that at one point in time, not so long ago, let's say 99.9% of human history, you were confronted with death on a daily basis.
Hmm.
Whether it was somebody in your village who died, and you probably knew them, and you probably saw their dead body, which was not like prepped like it would be in a funeral home today, which is even more disturbing to me, by the way,
Yeah.
of like
Yeah.
dead people with makeup on,
Uh-huh.
horrifying.
So
But
weird.
but you would see these people and you would understand that that was happening. You were forced to confront death. And then even once maybe that wasn't the case, even in like a slightly more industrialized world, a lot of people still would kill their animals. They would kill chickens to eat. And the death was something where you had to confront. Since we don't really have that, unless you're a farmer or a murderer in society today. Like you're not confronted with death regularly. I
Yeah.
think that I guess farmer or mortuary worker would probably be more accurate. But you don't see death, and so I think this allows us to see this thing and to get comfortable with it. And I think that's like the value of a lot of the value of horror or the value of a film like this, especially. Like I think this film is in a weird way like therapeutic
Yeah.
because you're dealing with those things in such a funny way.
And I think something that we've talked about in the past is like we're very weird when it comes to death. Like I don't really go to funerals. I just avoid them. And if I've been to a couple, I've laughed. Like I am just not okay with dealing with death, and I deal with it in strange ways, and you do as well. So I don't know. I thought that kind of reminded me of this movie in a way because it was kind of silly, and it's about death.
Yeah, I think it does. I think it serves a function
Yeah.
beyond just entertainment. What about all the music?
I liked it for the most part. I think. Were there any? I'm like trying to think of specific songs. I know that there were specific moments in it where it like played with the characters' motions and stuff.
So there's a really famous scene. There's this dinner party that it's the mom is using. She's basically like using Beetlejuice's art. Well, though she has all her art. It's like they start to kind of draw inspiration from the things that are happening in the house and like this place, and so they just had to hold a séance
Okay.
and she's sort of doing it for social clout. And because the dad moves them to this place, it's in the middle of nowhere. She hates it. She starts redecorating it. She kind of makes it her own. She's doing her art. They have all of her like society people come out, and they're holding this séance and this dinner. And Beetlejuice comes in and takes over, and he turns it into like a real supernatural event. And
Yeah.
her
Okay, I remember this
sculptures
scene.
start to like hold the people in their seats, and the guests all have to sing the song that was being sung at the dad's funeral by the choir of kids, like Deo Deo, that song.
Yeah.
That is the song that's playing, and it's that same thing in that scene. It becomes like this dance musical scene where all the dinner guests are singing the song under Beetlejuice's control. It's
Yeah.
wild. It's like it's I'm just making things up, but probably in like the 100 most famous scenes in movie history. And so the way that they were able to use that song, repurpose that song in a completely novel way, but then also kind of do their own version of that scene during the wedding scene, I thought was brilliant.
Yeah. How does it go? How does it go?
I'm not singing.
Can you say it at least?
It,
I
it
just watched it an hour ago and I can't even remember how
it's
it
at the
goes.
funeral. It's the kids are singing Deo Deo, daylight come and we want to go home.
Oh, okay, yeah. Who was singing? Like, because all of the characters had the same voice. Was it like that in the original? Was it Beetlejuice's, like,
Yeah, so it's
vocals?
always whoever. It's just the song.
Oh,
So it's whatever the original song
okay.
is. They're like he's like
Okay.
forcing them to lip sync.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's what they did. That's what they did here too.
I know you love a good musical number.
I do. And this had a couple of them. It was pretty great. It actually, even like the opening scene
Yeah,
with like Monica Bellucci's character putting herself back together, like
that's what I wanted to bring up. I loved that scene. That was my favorite.
yeah. And then I I guess like about halfway because even when they weren't showing his face, I was like, "Is this Danny DeVito?" Like I started to wonder with him. I was
I
so
thought the
happy.
same thing.
Well, he has a very recognizable silhouette.
Yeah,
So
for
I think
sure.
that's what it was. But yeah, like that opening scene kicked it off so right.
I was literally thinking that the whole time. Who is this? Because it looks like Danny DeVito.
Yeah, and you also know when they're not showing a character's face that there's a reason and there's going to be a
Yeah.
reveal. Like with the mom and the dad of the kid who tries to marry Astrid.
Yeah, and they have like the
Yeah.
like.
The axe and the whatever
Yeah,
thing was
yeah,
in her
whatever.
eye. Those were good reveals.
I do find that like I was shocked like most of the reveals. Normally, I feel like I can predict things, but there were moments of it where I was like, "Oh, this is not what I was anticipating."
Yeah.
Like with that kid.
Yeah, I think they did that really well across the board. So what didn't you like about it? Why 3 stars instead of 5? What's the 2 stars off for?
I thought that there were scenes that were a little bit too gross or like gory. And I didn't love some of like the dialogue. Like I thought it was a little cheesy. Like I don't know. I didn't like the green goo that coming out of people's mouths. And yeah, it didn't feel like super complicated. It just felt very like one note with the language, like kid movie.
Hmm. So that really knocks it down to 3?
Yeah.
I guess I also don't know. I've never looked at your letterbox, so I don't know what
I
like
normally
how
rate
harsh a
things
grader
pretty
you
high
are.
though.
Yeah.
I think I have two sort of methods when it comes to letterbox, and that's like, did this spark joy, make me happy? So it could be like the cheesiest rom-com, terrible movie, and I'll rate it a 5 star. Like an Adam Sandler movie, I will rate a 5 star. Or like I do like overly complex movies as well, but this was just kind of like whatever. It didn't speak to me.
Yeah, it spoke to me. I mean, I think that was one of the things that I left the theater feeling was like, I'm really happy that this exists because it's just made me really happy for a short period of time. And I'll think about it. Like, I'll see it again.
Really.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
But it made me want to rewatch the original Beetlejuice. Maybe really want to
Yeah.
rewatch that. Will you watch it now?
I would probably watch it fully. It's been so long.
Let's see what the rest of the world thinks. Do you want to go to professional critics or Letterboxd first?
Professional.
Okay.
This is like, I normally do like to like look at Twitter and see what people are saying about movies, or I will have like friends tell me about them, or I'll look at my friends' letterbox to see like what they rated a movie. And this, because I wasn't really interested in going to see it, I absolutely did not see anything online about it. So I'm really curious to see. I'm assuming it did really well.
All right. I'm going to Rotten Tomatoes top critics
Okay.
to see what they think.
I'm gonna look up what year the original came out, unless you can remember. I
Nin-
don't know.
1988. So Owen Gleiberman says at the end you feel exhilarated because the cunning way Burton works is part of the joke. His innocent deviousness lifts you up high like helium. We've got Lynn Darling who says it's the apparitions that are the real stars. They're gross, gaudy, and appropriately horrific. Oh, this one's. Oh no, this one's not for you. Carrie Ricky says, while Beetlejuice will absolutely no sense to those who demand coherence from a film, all viewers will delight in its dizzy, post-literate, postmodern style. Interesting. I thought it was coherent. Did you?
Yeah.
Mike Daly says the star of the movie is gravel-voiced Keaton, who relies heavily on the special effects and makeup team headed by Robert Short. Here's the first top critic that's a Rotten Tomato. The film is pure farce, tailored for the youth market and zapped up with suitably loony special effects. I mean, wasn't that kind of the first one too? Like that's
Yeah.
what you're going there for. I'm not going there for a serious character study.
Yeah.
Although I would argue it is a serious character study. Okay. Beetlejuice is weird, but often funny blend of special effects and yuppies that sounds a lot dumber than it plays. That was from Linnea Lannon of the Detroit Free Press. C. Sherman of the Boston Globe says the makers of Beetlejuice managed to go beyond pastiche and succeed in creating a unique, whacked out world. It seems like critics mostly dug it.
Yeah.
Now let's go to Letterboxd.
Okay. I'm gonna look on my phone too. Were there any significant moments during your viewing that you want to talk about? Were there a lot of people at the theater?
There were like. Sorry, can you hear kids screaming in the background?
Yes.
or maybe like six other people in the theater.
Yeah,
What about you?
I would say, yeah, same. I saw Matinee, a very early movie, which I
I
normally like to see.
yeah, I went at 12:40
Around 11.
time. So the first review, I'm looking at popular reviews on Letterboxd.
Uh-huh.
First person, the most popular one, 7,000 likes, says, "I get it if Tim, I get it, Tim. If I was dating Monica Bellucci, I would also write her into my movie for no reason." I didn't feel that was for no reason. I loved that character. I liked the idea that Beetlejuice, who is perpetually stalking Lydia, is being stalked by the girl that he chopped up with an axe and left behind for all eternity. I thought that
I
made
will be
sense.
so honest. I thought that she was in the original. I didn't even
Really?
I didn't even think that that was like a different. Like
Oh,
she
that was
looks like an original character.
that was she looked very corpse bride.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, I didn't even mention Nightmare Before Christmas when I was mentioning
Yeah.
Tim Burton movies. How did I leave that one out?
Yeah, it looked like she was part of it. Like that's like Tim Burton part.
Yeah,
Like
and the stapling of like the parts back together, the
it
way
was
they did
so
that, it was
good.
so good. So you talk about significant parts of the movie. I just keep going back to that. That was such
Yeah.
a good opening scene
I
because
think that was my favorite part.
it felt of that world, but it was also completely new.
Yeah. Crazy.
So someone says, I hope this franchise goes on for way too long, overstays its welcome, and keeps the same naming scheme. Would love to see Beetlejuice, 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 million Beetlejuices. So that's also interesting about Letterboxd is that that person gave it 3 out of 5 stars as well.
Uh-huh.
But the interesting thing about this is, I've written one review on here under our Solo Moviegoers Club, and I wrote it just about the solo movie-going experience itself, not
Hmm.
about the actual movie. But like, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna just like get this out there. I don't think there is a filmmaker who does not read their reviews and who does not read their reviews on Letterboxd. So Letterboxders out
Uh-huh.
there, what do you call the Letterboxers? Is there a name for that community?
No.
People of Letterboxd. Filmmakers are reading your reviews. When you are cruel, it hurts some of them very much. Others think it's very funny. I think it's very funny, but
Hmm.
it's a funny thing. It's a funny place because a lot of it, I feel like people aren't actually reviewing the movies. They're just trying to
No.
write a review that's going to get a bunch of likes.
Yes, this is true. I was just going to say that.
And by the way,
Like I love like scrolling through because I always am laughing at these. It's hilarious.
yeah, it's like it's I guess it's just its own form of like writing and entertainment. And it's interesting though. I always find with all these platforms, I had this issue with Facebook and with Instagram, although people make money on Instagram now, but like I don't know. I saw the valuation of Letterboxd was pretty high,
Uh-huh.
and everybody is supplying content there for free. Like, what do you
Yeah.
get? Like, person who got 6,000 likes on a Letterboxd review of Beetlejuice, but does it just make you feel good that you got all those likes? Do you get anything for it? Like, you're the
Yeah.
writer, you're supplying content, you're not getting paid.
This is true.
This is not going to help Letterboxd, like whatever their algorithm is, to promote any of my films.
No.
And they were very kind, and they let me write like an editorial when my last movie came out about the movies that it was inspired by. So Letterboxd, I appreciate what you do, but humans of the world, I think we need to think about giving our work away for free as we make a podcast that we're about to give away for free.
Yeah, exactly.
So maybe the world's changing. I'm old and I need to get over it. So okay, somebody else says, I could tell the school shooter-esque guy was evil 5 seconds in because he was a perfect blend of Evan Peters and AHS and my ex-boyfriend. Also, the
Wow.
lack of CGI made me happy. I can't see any, like, actual real reviews.
There are none. Truly, it's like just people making a comment about each like aspect of it. Like this one is really good. Winona Ryder's hair reminded me a little too much of Courtney Cox in Scream 3. This is true.
But that was also her hair in the original.
Yeah, but it looked like more so choppy.
Yeah. It's interesting to see, like, a character who is a style influence from so long ago now, like, bringing that character in and like having like the pressure for the costume designers of like continuing
Yeah.
to make that person look cool when there's such a like an icon of a character.
Do you think it was part of they were part of the original crew?
Great question. I need to look that up. I want to say I definitely recognize the name of the costume designer,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously Danny Elfman, who does the music. I'm not sure about the production designer
Mm-hmm.
or the makeup team. I'm sure it's a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
Some of these I don't even understand. Like there's a comment here that says who up juicing their Beetle RN.
Right now. I
I
don't
get
know.
the right now, but who up juicing their Beetle? I don't understand. I don't. Oh, maybe I do. I regret saying that. My ask is very simple for this movie. I want good vibes, and that's what I got. Thank you very much. That's basically how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And that was from the film Drunk. That is that an actual critic? I think so.
I don't know. People who like
Patron. They
have
have patron status.
yeah, okay.
Oh yeah, Willem Dafoe. We haven't even talked about Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe was awesome in this. This is like
I
exactly
loved
what I
his
want from him.
character. Yeah. He was super cool. The part where he was like reading off of like cardboard
Cue
like
cards.
what are those cards, cue cards to his like team of police officers. That was hilarious.
Yeah, that was good. That was kind of like there's this movie called Last Action Hero
Hmm.
that it was like considered a massive flop when it came out and people really hated it, but Arnold Schwarzenegger's in it, and this kid basically gets like a magic ticket and works his way into the world of the movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger's in, and
Hmm.
it's in the movie in that world Schwarzenegger is really an action hero. But
Hmm.
then, how does it work? Schwarzenegger gets pulled into the real world, and all the movies that. Oh no, no, no! I know what it is. In that world, all the movies that Schwarzenegger's really into, like Terminator, they go to a
Yeah.
video store, and Sylvester Stallone was playing Terminator. So it's like
Hmm.
in that world, Sylvester Stallone has all those roles. Anyways,
Yeah.
it reminded me. There's a lot of very like self-conscious, I guess, humor at the behest of like an actor playing a certain type of role. And the
Hmm.
Willem Dafoe character in this reminded me exactly of that. Like this guy who was a cop actor who becomes this real cop, but still has like the trappings of an actor within the
Yeah.
world. I just thought was brilliant. I don't get it. I don't know why they did that. I don't know why it makes any sense. It's just funny.
It
And
just
like
makes sense though
it
for
does
this.
make sense, but it's like it's the kind of thing that you think of and you think of doing. Like it's like the that's actually maybe that's why the one critic said it felt incoherent. This movie felt like it had like 15 things in it that would be
Uh-huh.
jokes between friends while writing the movie, but that
Yeah.
you cut out. You're like, we're
Yeah.
not going to leave this in the movie. And they just did.
Yeah.
They just left
Yeah.
everything in.
Uh-huh.
It was super maximalist.
Uh-huh. I agree.
How crazy is this
Yeah, it
compared to the
was
OG?
a lot of people are talking about all the subplots and how great those were. And I
Yeah.
think that's why I found it most engaging. Like it wasn't heavily like ridden with conflict. It was conflict for me, but it was just subplots.
But it was fine. And also
Yeah.
there's like a oh, who do you think is the main character of this movie?
Honestly, I think Lydia was. It felt like that the whole time for me.
Yeah, I mean maybe it was kind of a two-hander, Lydia and Astrid,
Yeah.
but probably more
I don't know.
Lydia.
I just felt like yeah, I feel like Astrid's parts were like more insignificant to the overall movement of the movie.
Like she was there to serve Lydia.
Yes.
Yeah, it's interesting because like so normally there's a rule in movies where you don't really want to cut away from the main character, like
Yeah.
almost ever.
Uh-huh.
And unless it's two-hander, like Dinner in America, for instance, it's like
Yeah.
until sorry, we're mentioning that a completely random movie, but it's a movie that Kai and I are both very familiar with that I worked on that our friend made, and the
Trending right now,
and trending
by
right
the
now. I
way,
forgot about that.
on
And
TikTok.
by the way, if in that movie there's two kind of co-leads, Simon and Patty, and
Uh-huh.
they're each having like their own movie. And then at the
Hmm.
end of the first act, they meet, and then they're always together from the point they meet on. And
Hmm.
like that's traditionally the structure of a movie. You don't really cut away from the main character. This movie broke that rule, and it was better because of it. It
Yeah.
was like it was with Monica Bellucci. It was with Willem Dafoe. It was with Beetlejuice. It was with Lydia. It was with Astrid. There were moments where it was with just the mom. There were moments where it was with Lydia's new husband. Like it split
Mm-hmm.
off into so many different characters' journeys, but was also not an overly long movie, and it didn't
Yeah.
ever feel like it was losing me. I really did find, I think this is like a tribute to how good of an actor he is, but like Justin Theroux's character as Lydia's new fiance, boyfriend, manager guy, I hated him
Uh-huh.
so much
Yeah.
from like the
Yeah.
very first time I
The
saw him. He's so
second I saw
obnoxious,
him. Yeah.
just the worst.
Uh-huh. Hollywood scum.
Yeah, that was bad.
Well, New York scum. But yeah. But I
So
think
what else?
that's another reason why I really liked it too. The thing that I absolutely hated about it was the Chucky babies.
Oh yeah, those are pretty
Okay,
terrifying.
how did you feel about the ending? Yeah.
Well,
How did
like
you feel about
the
the
like
ending?
dream within a dream within a dream within a dream.
Yes.
I
It felt
liked
like
it.
it was a story I wrote in high school. It was all a dream.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I knew there was a tell because when it cut back,
Yeah.
like at first when Astrid was giving birth, and then
Hmm.
it cut wide, and you could see that it
Yeah.
was a very like Tim Burton production design heavy, kind of like retro looking hospital. You're like,
Uh-huh.
oh, something's off here. Like this isn't the
Felt like
real
Willy
world.
Wonka.
Yeah, and so that I don't know. I liked it. I enjoyed it. I was
Yeah.
having fun.
It definitely set it up for Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. So,
Yeah, but if they keep this up, they will make Beetlejuice 68 years from 1988. That's a long run.
that's a long time.
Yeah, I don't know. You think does this demand a trilogy?
I think it does.
I think it does too. And why wouldn't they do it? It made a crazy amount of money this weekend,
Uh-huh.
and it looked like those actors were having so much fun.
Uh-huh. For sure.
And everybody, the whole crew must have had fun. Like this looks like a
Hmm.
blast of a movie to make. Like, this is the kind of movie that people get into making movies to make, with fantastic production design, beautiful costume design, wild
Hmm.
performances, tons of special effects. It's like great music. Those dance sequences must have been so fun to film. Like
Hmm.
everything about it seemed like a blast. And like I feel like with some of these movies, I think you can tell. I think when you watch a movie, you can tell if the people who made it were happy when they were making it or not.
Yeah.
And it seemed like they were just loving it.
Hmm.
Right. Anything else, or do we end on we want Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice?
I guess we do with my 3-star rating.
How can you want to see a sequel for something you gave three
I
stars?
don't know. I feel like I have to know what happens now.
So
But
you're
it
invested.
definitely I felt invested during the movie and I definitely felt a pull to watch the original in full as an adult.
I think you need to revisit your rating.
I'm still
Okay,
saying
so
3.
you watched the second movie.
I didn't
It
like the
made you
gore.
it made you want to watch the first, and it made you want there to be a third. But you gave it three stars.
That's still a 6 out of 10.
God, that's not great.
It's pretty mid.
It's mid. It's barely fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
What is it?
You would have given it a fresh,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like you would
That's
have been
still
one
a
of
good
those reviews. Like
rating.
I've gotten those reviews on my movies before, where like somebody gives me a rotten, and I'm like, you're saying nothing but good things until you say like one thing you hated, and then sometimes you get a fresh,
I didn't love it, but I
all
didn't hate
negative,
it.
and then one good comment and you get fresh.
I feel like if it's a movie that I will watch again, it's a 5-star.
So you won't watch this again, but you will watch the original, and you would watch a
Yeah,
third.
just so that I feel like a little bit more clear about the whole story.
Okay,
Yeah.
interesting. Is there anything you have wanted to say about this movie or about this experiment we're going on with Solo Moviegoers Club that you didn't say?
I feel like I've heard it. How do I want to say this? A lot of people think that it's weird to go see movies alone, but I think that it is one of the most enjoyable and relaxing experiences in life, and that it makes me see the movies in a different way. And I think that if you're going to see a movie in the near future, you should see it alone.
Okay, I totally agree. We can't end on anything better than that. Please go see movies alone and check in for our next episode. We'll be doing this weekly.
Bye. Peace.
Thank you for listening.